It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump.
Max Landis.
Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible.
Older than white.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Time to roll home on a Tuesday. It is the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump, and he is Adam Lundy. Your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. Did I say that twice? I feel like I'm a broken record right now because I'm just so geeked about the weather. I can't keep my mind off how nice it is out there because we've got windows. So we're sitting here looking at the gorgeous blue sky, the sunshine. There's no snow in the picture.
No.
Awesome.
Today was fantastic. As you know, I like to go outside and shoot hoops. Did that today, my man.
You're dressed for hoops. You got the shorts on. Unbelievable.
Yeah, got some shots up earlier today. Walked around the park with the missus, so got some of this weather in, man.
Awesome. But if you got any questions, comments, or suggestions, love to hear from you at 260-447-8500, 260-447-8500, the Parkview Sports Medicine text line. By the way, we were talking about the downtown arena and how it would be real nice if we could get this off the ground and get something actually done and decided. And I don't know who this group is, but somebody had alerted us through our text line to a group called Fort Wayne Next, which, according to their site, it says they're dedicated to propelling Fort Wayne into its next chapter of growth and prosperity. But it says key projects for the next 10 years. So this is kind of what they see as the key initiatives for shaping the future of Fort Wayne over the next 10-year period. And it talks about the Riverfront Phase 3 development and a downtown arena, natatorium, and a professional soccer stadium all need to be constructed.
That'd
Probably.
be awesome.
Check. And then a youth sports center also when we're talking about what applies to sports on this list. But those are two things they're talking about. So we'll see. Somebody finally has listened to my plea for a downtown arena. And, you know, it's funny because people opposed to it are all like, we already have an arena. We have the Coliseum. Or they want to argue that, what's going to happen with the Embassy Theater if you build a... Cities have survived this, okay? There are literally hundreds of events that travel around the country, whether it's a comedian, whether it's a theater show, whether it's a musician and a band, whether it's sporting events, and they're looking for venues, and sometimes they have certain dates they're looking for, and it's a shame if the flower and garden sale is taking up space that they would need so their entire event can't come to our community because we don't have an alternative place to go. And so you're going to have a lot more events coming to Fort Wayne than what you see. So don't sit there and just, think that the current list of events, well, if you take the current list of events and you try to divide it with another arena, all of a sudden nobody gets enough events and everybody goes broke. That's not the way it works. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, no, it's not competition amongst venues if you add more venues. It's more places for more things to come in.
They've had, and of course, like the Coliseum, for instance, has common hockey, which takes up a lot of weekend dates during the winter months. And so just about anybody who's touring, trying to slip in a date between Dayton and Chicago, they can't get in. They've got one day. Is it open or not? We got common hockey that night.
Right, and that's not to poo-poo.
I'm
on
off to Grand Rapids. No, it's just, what you have to do is have enough venues to satisfy the demand. And
exactly.
there's demand that's out there that's not being satisfied because we don't have a place to put them. And so if anybody wants to complain Fort Wayne doesn't have enough to do, well, this is part of the reason. We don't have the facilities to bring the entertainment into this city. So
yeah, shout out to this next project, having a good vision of what could help Fort Wayne.
Yep, we agree with you. All right, 260-447-8500. Well, everybody's wanting to talk about whether Indiana is in, whether they're on the bubble, whether they're one of the first four out, or where they're at. ESPN, their bracketology as of today, has Indiana among the first four out of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And, they make a big deal about the net rankings. So I thought, okay, let's see exactly who they are saying is in, who is the last four in, the first four out, the next four out, and see how they look according to the net rankings. So Indiana right now, number 56 in the country. They probably are going to want to get somewhere in the low 40s to get a really secure argument that they should be in. Because right now, Nebraska, that's one spot below them in the Big Ten standings, is 2 spots above them in the net. And Nebraska is considered one of the last four in, while Indiana is one of the first four out. So Indiana needs to leapfrog Nebraska. Last night, Nebraska gave Michigan a game, but Michigan ultimately won in what looked like a girls' high school basketball score, 49-46. Seriously?
Yeah.
49 points. IU is just laughing at that, saying, we scored 50 in the second half the other night.
Sure did.
Purdue Fort Wayne women scored 54 in the second half. But, okay, so Indiana's at 56. But the last four buys, in other words, safely into the tournament, West Virginia, Texas, San Diego State, and Ohio State. Ohio State, despite being kind of bottom of the Big Ten, they've got a net ranking of 34. I mean, they've got the highest net ranking of any of these teams. And I did not realize that until I pulled it up. San Diego State, 49, and that's the highest of the last four buys. That's why I say you want to get in the lower 40s to really feel like you're into a secure position. Texas is 38. West Virginia is 48. Now, among the last four that are in, number one, all three of the four have a higher net ranking or a better net ranking than Indiana, with Nebraska at 54, Oklahoma at 51, and Arkansas at 39. I don't know if that's a lower net ranking or a higher net. I guess it would be officially a lower number, but it's higher ranked.
Yes, that's good.
But Wake Forest, ESPN has as the last four in. And Wake Forest right now has a net ranking of 64, which happens to be worse than three of the four teams that are completely almost off the list.
Yeah. I don't know about the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. They're 11-5. They're fourth in the Atlantic Coast, the ACC. They're 0-5 against AP-ranked teams.
And, and here's the argument Indiana has is, they've got a couple of nice wins now with Michigan State on the road and Purdue.
Yeah.
And the other thing Indiana has is they do not have a bad loss. If you look at them against quadrant 2, 3, and 4, they are 12-0.
Mm-hmm.
They have not lost to a team outside of quad 1 this year. So you could complain about, what they have, 5 out of 6 losses at one point.
Yeah.
You can complain about that, but yet all those games were quad 1 games, so their quad 1 record is only 4-11. But when you compare it to some of these teams that are the last four in or first four out, that's not bad. But where the other teams have faltered is they've dropped a game or two that's in quad 2, or maybe even occasionally some of these teams have a quad 3 loss.
Mm-hmm.
And Indiana is 12-0 against teams in quad 2, 3, and 4 combined. Another team that I noted that's not even on the list is Northwestern, who's at 57, and they don't even make the list at all. And I wonder if that's because of the injury to Barnheiser, if it's like they've written them off because they've got a key player who's out. But anyway, right now, Indiana among a group that includes North Carolina, who's number 44 in the net, SMU, number 41 in the net, and Xavier at number 53. So the other three teams among the first four out all have a better net ranking than Indiana at number 56.
Yeah,
so
they're right They're close. They're right on the edge of that bubble.
They're close, but I think they've got to get that into the mid to lower 40s to have a real solid argument of getting into the field.
Definitely.
And I don't know what the remaining schedule. A win at Oregon would probably go a long way. But, you have to understand the algorithm and the formula for the net rankings. Not sure I do. All right, let's go ahead and get our caller. Who wants to play some Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia? Caller number 2 today. And we're looking for somebody that's a first-time player. I want to get a first-time player. Now, we might not do it. We're not going to hold you hostage to being a first-time player. But if you have never played before, today is your day. Give us a call, 260-447-8500. And caller number 2 is going to play Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia. That's 260-447-8500. Especially if you've been listening to this game and you've played along in your car, but you've never given it a try yourself. We want to hear from you. 260-447-8500 is the phone number to call. Call right now. At stake, we've got a large pizza to Pizza Hut from our friends at Pizza Hut of Fort Wayne. And so you'll be a winner just for getting through and being caller number 2. And I think we have our caller ready to go.
We do.
Let's go ahead and get to the phone line and see who's today's victim. Who's this?
Tim Wilson.
Jim?
Tim.
Yeah, Tim. T-I-M, yeah.
Gotcha, Tim. Tim, have you played before?
No, but I've listened to you play before.
Okay, well,
First time.
That's what we love. We want to get some new players, some new blood, okay? Because,
right.
Honestly, Tim, now that I know you haven't played before, I should take that back about being a victim. Because it's all those guys that keep calling and calling and calling, and they keep trying desperately to beat me, and I just keep whooping on them week after week after week, and I've grown tired of it. I needed somebody new to challenge me, to make me better. And, Tim, I think you're going to be the guy to do it.
I'm probably one of those quad 1 teams.
There we go. All right.
There you go. So he's got like a 4-11 record. All right, so, Tim, here we go. Let's play the game.
It's time for Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia on the Sports Rush.
All right, let's get into it with clue number 1. The Archery World Cup took place in this year in the Dominican Republic. Your leading medal winners were the USA, Italy, and Russia.
Tim, this is up to you. You can give it a stab or you can pass it to me.
I'm going to have to pass that to you.
I will go with, see, here's the thing Tim doesn't know because he hasn't played. But by giving up on the first one, when you now alternate, that means on the final clue, which things get a lot easier when you get to the end, I'll have the first guess. But I'll say 2009.
All right, Tim.
I'll go 1999.
Prince fan. He's a obvious Prince fan. All right,
going on to clue number 2. The Detroit Shock would win their 3rd championship in franchise history after sweeping the league-best San Antonio Silver Stars in this year's WNBA Finals. You first, Tim.
I think that was when Lanier was coaching, right?
Oh, I don't know, man. I just write the questions down. I don't get the details.
Yeah, you get no clues, Tim.
I'm going to go 2005.
Brett?
I'm going to go with 2002.
All right, moving on to clue number 3. We're going to baseball. The Fresno State University Bulldogs made history by becoming the biggest underdogs to win a baseball NCAA championship by beating the University of Georgia in this year's College World Series. And it's Brett first.
I'm going to go with 2012.
Tim.
It's got to be 2009.
Already been guessed.
Then it can't be. All right. I will go 2010.
I remember watching that. I do, but I think we're sniffing it right now. I think we're sniffing it.
All right, clue number 4. This will be Tim first. Tiger Woods win this year's U.S. Open Golf Championship over Rocco Mediate following an 18-hole playoff, which they tie at even par. It forced a sudden death playoff on the 7th hole.
I even watched that. He had a bad swing in that week. I'm going to say 2011. Oh.
Brett.
Tiger and Rocco. I'm going to go 2006.
All right, we're going to go on to clue number 5. Before we do, I'm going to give you the top song from this year on the Billboard Top 100. It was Low by Flo Rida and T-Pain. As you know, Shawty got low, low, low. All right, moving on to clue number 5 here. For the first time in both World Series and postseason history, a contest is suspended during an official game as Game 5 of the World Series is halted in the 6th inning with a tie score of 2-2 between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Philadelphia Phillies. Brett first.
Oh, boy. Tampa Bay Phillies. I feel such tremendous pressure now because I have to go first. I'll say, I think we've got it pretty well surrounded. I'll just throw out a guess and then let him win. 2008.
Oh, man. Oh, that was a good game, guys.
I looked at about the only gap we had was 2007 or 2008, and I was pretty sure we were in that neighborhood.
Oh.
I got it. Tim, you've joined a cast of others that have all come and walked away with the walk of shame, but you do get a large pizza to Pizza Hut just for being today's caller, and appreciate you, well, I can't say breaking the big V, but congrats on a good effort today. Good effort.
Stay on the line.
Appreciate you. Yeah, stay on the line.
I want you to know before you let me go, I know I'm not worthy. I will never call you.
Come on.
We want you to call again. We want you to be determined.
Just give it a month.
I always enjoy people calling that get beat. All right, let's keep the show moving. I need more victims, Adam. More victims.
Yep, we got Tim on hold now, so stay on hold. We'll get to him.
Yep, and we'll take a break because Sam King is going to join us when we come back. I talk Purdue basketball, talking about being a victim. They've lost 4 in a row, and we'll talk about it next right here on the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. Our Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we've got the Mastodons Coaches Show with men's basketball coach John Kaufman, women's basketball coach Maria Marcassano, and we'll have men's basketball players Rasheed Bello and Trey Lewis, and women's basketball player Lauren Ross. That is all packed into an hour from 6 to 7. The Mastodons Coaches Show right here on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. The Purdue Boilermakers lost their 4th straight to the Indiana Hoosiers on Sunday, and we've got to talk about it because Sam King is covering the Boilermakers for the Lafayette Journal and Courier, and he joins us now. And Sam, I guess the simple question to start off with, how has this happened?
Well, it's funny because before this game Sunday, I said if you take those 3 losses to Michigan, Wisconsin, and Michigan State and place them sporadically throughout the season schedule, you don't think that there's any cause for concern because, it's all understandable losses to teams of that caliber. The way they happen, maybe not so much, but the fact that those 3 happened right in a row, and then you go to Bloomington against a team who has a lame duck head coach, has lost 8 of 10, and you're winning by 12 at halftime, and then you just get shellacked for the next 5 minutes of the second half. That's just kind of inexcusable, and that was really the point where I said, okay, now this is maybe becoming a serious problem. And after the game, Matt Painter was about as colorful as he'll get in terms of criticizing his team and things of that sort, and you didn't really have to ask him a whole lot because it seemed like he came in kind of ready to send a message to his team. And he did just that, and the people that he pointed the finger at most were Trey Kaufman-Wren and Braden Smith, who have been the reason that Purdue has won a lot of games. But on Sunday, they were probably the 2 culprits for why Purdue did not win that game.
Sam, I've got a philosophy or a theory or just an observation that I think Braden Smith, with the heavy minutes and the way he runs that offense, he looks gassed to me. 6 turnovers in back-to-back games. Is he basically just fatigued at this point?
I don't get that sense. And he's going to tell you that he did the off-season conditioning and kind of knew this was going to be his role. At some point, you do have to give him a break. And there was a point in the first half of that game Sunday where they took him out of the game, and you never see that. And Purdue played about 3 minutes without him on the court, and actually, I think, outscored Indiana 5-0 during that stretch. So that was good to see, and I think that it's going to get to a point where you can't just count on one guy to play 40 minutes a night and have nothing behind him. But, yeah, I think that maybe more so than just him being gassed is teams have found different ways to defend him. He's listed at 6 feet. He's probably more like 5'10", and you can really pressure him and get after him with some longer people sometimes. And I think that's what Indiana had a lot of success doing. I thought probably not credited as much as he should be, but Anthony Leal did a pretty good job defending him on Sunday.
Is the bigger concern for Purdue offensive or defensive?
Well, I thought it was defensively up until that second half Sunday. You're not going to beat anybody scoring 58 points or whatever Purdue ended up with. Michigan State kind of ran Purdue out of the gym, but a lot of that was Purdue didn't have a lot of turnovers, but the turnovers they had led to fast break layups and dunks, and those are points you can't get back against a team of that caliber. So some of these issues where it looks like their defensive issues also are stemming from the offense turning the ball over in advantageous situations for the opponent to go down and get an easy bucket and translate a turnover into 2 quick points. So it's been hit or miss. The Wisconsin game, I would say it was clearly defense, but Michigan State kind of maybe a little bit of both. Gave up a lot of easy lobs over the top defensively, but also, like I said, the turnovers. And then, the other day, I think it was just the offense had a total collapse, and it seemed like at times Trey Coffin-Wren, I don't want to say he got selfish, but he made some poor decisions trying to go into double teams instead of passing the ball back out and letting Purdue try to get a better shot or get the ball back into him with maybe a more favorable matchup. And it did not work. And once the snowball started rolling against Indiana, it seemed like Purdue just kind of rolled over and let it smash them.
Sam, I went into the season feeling like Miles Colvin and Cam Heide were kind of X factors to filling that fifth spot, the vacant spot. And I think in my mind, both have been somewhat disappointing or underwhelming. Which one is a bigger concern to you, or are they a concern?
Well, I think that Miles Colvin probably against Indiana played his best half of the season. Unfortunately, it wasn't, in a winning effort. That first half was pretty spectacular to the point where I had written a partial story about Miles Colvin and looked up his family's history with his sister playing volleyball at Purdue and his dad playing football, and what they've done against Indiana in their athletic careers as Boilermakers. And I had to obviously scrap that story 3 or 4 minutes into the second half. But I thought that was a positive sign. He also had a pretty good showing late against Wisconsin and another game where it didn't matter, but it was nice to see him get some shots to go down. So I think that his confidence is coming back around. Cam Heide hit a couple of threes against Michigan State, but after the game, Matt Painter was semi-critical, saying he needed to shoot more. He had some open looks that he just passed on, and maybe that's a confidence issue where you're used to being a 40% three-point shooter and you're under 30. You maybe don't, you get a little gun shy at times. So I think Purdue would like to see both of them continue to be aggressive and feel like the shots should start falling at some point. But yeah, as a whole, maybe what people placed on them as far as expectations this year, both of them are freak athletes and both of them are really good shooters. So there's reason to believe that they would do some good things for you. But when they have, it's been kind of hit and miss. And you'd like to see somebody be more consistent in that role that can kind of do something for you, give you that spark off the bench.
What's the goal now for Purdue? At one point, it was to win a Big Ten title, but in this 4-game losing streak, they've kind of put themselves in a predicament here where it's now about seeding, maybe more than that. But with these 3 games remaining, what does Purdue have to accomplish besides maybe start winning games?
Yeah, you need to play well. Obviously, the Big Ten title is out of the window now. That's, seemed like going into that Michigan game, if Purdue could have won that game, it was, Purdue would have been in the driver's seat and maybe been on its way to a Big Ten championship. I don't know if that game ended up breaking Purdue because Purdue led that game by 10 points in the second half and ended up losing despite having a shot to win the game late. And that's been the first of now 4 straight losses. So going into UCLA, which is obviously not a gimme game, and then Rutgers, and then at Illinois, another tough one. I think what Purdue needs to do most is play well and put itself as high on the seed line for the NCAA tournament as it can, because it has clearly fallen from what was the number 1-2 seed in the tournament just a couple of weeks ago to now being like one of the probably around 15-16 range overall, which would give you a lower end 4 seed.
When you look at the Big Ten tournament with that new format, is Purdue on the bubble for what day they would play? I'm still trying to figure out the exact pairings and where Purdue is at in the standings right now and where they could potentially end up. Have they got to play their way into one less day of play in the Big Ten tournament?
Well, it's a jumbled up mess right now behind Michigan, between Michigan State and Wisconsin and Purdue, and then the next batch of teams beyond that. So there's clearly a lot to get figured out here in the next couple of weeks. I would expect, just looking at the remaining schedules and things of that sort, and I know we can't take anything for granted right now with Purdue, but I would think Purdue is going to be one of those top 4 seeds.
Well, that'll be a good position to be in going into the tournament, and what that would give them the double bye then, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
That would be a good position to be in, and I don't know how much the Big Ten tournament factors into the NCAA tournament seeding, because the Big Ten tournament is so late in the process that, the Big Ten championship game is the lead-in to the NCAA selection show. So you pretty much, by that point, have your seeds locked in, and it would take something drastic to really move you up or down too much.
Well, and Sam, you bring up a point that I've been making for years, that part of the reason the Big Ten has struggled in the tournament is because they play their conference tournament, which I think is very draining when you're playing back-to-back-to-back days, and they play it so close to the start of the NCAA tournament. Is there anything the Big Ten can do about that? Because it just seems to me, and I don't know if you're on board with this, but it just seems to me like putting your conference into that type of situation where you're playing back-to-back days for perhaps the first time all year for some squads, and then you have to come back 3 or 4 days later. There's travel. There's early travel because of press conferences, and you start your NCAA tournament. I think that's pretty hard on these guys.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, Purdue wins the Big Ten tournament in Chicago and then has to go to Columbus, Ohio, to play in the first round of the NCAA tournament the same week. And we all know what happened there. And I'm not going to say that was the reason, but it clearly doesn't help in terms of like having fresher legs or anything like that. And last year, when Purdue was in Minneapolis and lost in the semifinal to Wisconsin, it seemed like Purdue was kind of like, we're okay with that. Like, okay, we don't have to come back and play Sunday and then travel to wherever the first round destination is. It almost seemed like, it was probably better to go home, sleep in your own bed, have an extra day of rest, and watch the selection show as a team on your own campus versus kind of doing it in a locker room somewhere away from home, and then really not even getting to go home and enjoy being back on campus. It's pretty much like, okay, now it's off to the NCAA tournament. I guess a couple of years ago, Purdue didn't know who it was even playing at that point because it played a play-in game opponent. But I do think there's something to that, and I know that people have said that for years. Unfortunately for the Big Ten, or fortunately if you're talking about finances, there's a nice draw to having the Big Ten be the thing that a lot of people are tuned in watching, waiting for that selection show to start.
Yep, it's the value of the dollar over the teams making it to the Sweet 16 sometimes, and we know how that equation works in college athletics today. Sam, always appreciate you. We'll follow what the Boilermakers do Friday night, another one of those beautiful Friday night games against UCLA. Rutgers at home, and then finishing it up with a trip to Illinois. Appreciate the time, Sam.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep, that's Sam King, covers the Purdue Boilermakers for the Lafayette Journal and Courier. And, of course, you can always read what he has to say online at the Lafayette Journal and Courier, LJC. All right, we'll take a break. We're going to come back. Plenty more here ahead on the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. When we were talking about fatigue and whether Purdue has it, one thing I've noticed, Adam, when we look at these college basketball teams, another sign that I've seen with fatigue is when guards that normally are very good defenders at taking away penetration, when they get lazy hips and all of a sudden they become more of a door than a wall. And, when you guard a driving point guard from the other team and you can wall them up where you can stop them at the foul line and your hips stay parallel to the three-point line wherever you're defending them, whether it's on the wing, the baseline, or even up top, you try to keep those hips in front of the defender or the offensive player and keep them parallel to the three-point line. What I've noticed is a lot of guards become doors at this time of year where they get lazy and they don't have that first step to keep their hips locked up and they swing open. And that's where I say they become a door rather than a wall, where all of a sudden they're opening up, a drive comes, and as soon as that offensive player gets one step on the defender, every defensive player makes an adjustment. And you've got a big now that takes a step up. You've got a wing that maybe cuts in to try to reach and try to poke the ball, trying to take something away. They leave a three-point shooter open. The big leaves the big open under the basket. Purdue was terrible at this against Michigan State because all Michigan State did off that ball screen was do the pick and roll with the lob. And the big was taking the step up to try to take away the guard, and it left Michigan State being able to catch the lob and dunk it in. So I mean, that's one thing that you see with the fatigue is all of a sudden these guards that are normally really good defenders because they've got quick feet and they get that first step and keep themselves locked in with their hips, keep the hips lined up with the parallel to the three-point line instead of swinging it open and allowing that guard to penetrate and beat them on the first step. That's another thing you see at this time of year. But anyway, it's time for the final week of the regular season for the Horizon League. And, man, there's still a bunch that has to be decided. First of all, RMU enters this final week with a half-game lead over Cleveland State. And Robert Morris is going to finish their season at IU Indy coming up on Thursday night. IU Indy is 5-13 in league play, and they just got off a burning bus.
Yeah.
And they've lost all their equipment. They're trying to get everything in place and scramble stuff together. But that RMU, IU Indy coming up on Thursday. And then you've got Cleveland State and Youngstown State. Now, they know they're in the top 5. They can't fall as far as 6. But Cleveland State a half game back. Youngstown State 1 game back. But Youngstown State has 6 losses, which is exactly where Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Milwaukee both are positioned. But because of tiebreakers, Youngstown State with only 1 game left to play, and that's going to be Sunday at Northern Kentucky, who the Mastodons will play at home on Thursday. Youngstown State, 1 game back, they cannot fall to out of the top 5, so they know they're going to get a first-round bye. Now, the Mastodons, Milwaukee, they're the ones most vulnerable to fall into that 6th spot. And right now, Oakland is kind of chasing both of them. But you've got the Mastodons with Northern Kentucky. And if they beat them on Thursday night at home, and they're like 12-1 at home this season, they would lock up a top 5. So Purdue Fort Wayne can join Youngstown State in getting a first-round bye, guaranteed, if they get the win on Thursday. Then it comes down to Saturday with the Mastodons going to Cleveland State. And so you look at Cleveland State at 13-5, sitting half game out of first right now in second place, but they could fall all the way down to 5th, which would be interesting if Cleveland State has to go on the road. And, Cleveland State's schedule is Cleveland State is going to play at Wright State and then home to Purdue Fort Wayne.
Man, lot still to be decided by these last couple of games here.
It's crazy. The schedule is just, everything coming down. And, the big game, perhaps the biggest game of the week, is going to come down to that Cleveland State Purdue Fort Wayne game on Saturday.
Yep, you'll want to be tuned into that one, no question about it.
Yep, we've got coverage of Purdue Fort Wayne versus Northern Kentucky at home at the Coliseum on Thursday night. 7 o'clock tip, 6:45 will be the pregame. And, of course, that'll be the final home game of the regular season. And that may be the final home game period. Because you end up in 5th, you get a first-round bye, but you have to go on the road to play that quarterfinal. But that game is on Thursday night, and then on Saturday, it is a 4 o'clock tip at Cleveland State with a 3:45 pregame, and we will bring you all the play-by-play of the Mastodons and the Cleveland State Vikings. And right after the game, we'll be heading to Indianapolis, where we've got the 3A state championship game, Norwell versus Greensburg, undefeated Greensburg.
Yeah, we've got a packed Saturday for you, no question about it. Lots of coverage from morning to night, so things don't stop on a Friday here.
Well, we've got hockey coming up Saturday, too.
We have a 1A state championship in hockey to bring you on Saturday.
So we've got a 1A state championship. We've got a game that could ultimately decide, have a huge impact on the seedings of the Horizon League tournament.
Yeah.
And then we've got a state championship in high school girls basketball.
What a killer Saturday, my man.
And Jim Shovelin's Talking Sports.
Do not leave out Jim Shovelin and Talking Sports along with my man DC Hendricks. That is a quality way to get your Saturday morning started.
We are your tournament home coming up in March.
Yeah.
We're going to have coverage of the Big Ten tournament, the Horizon League tournament, and the NCAA tournament all coming up in March right here at 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Also coming up at the top of the hour, it is another edition of the Mastodons Coaches Show.
Yes, sir.
Had fun last night. Hung around Gates Center, pre-recorded tonight's show, so I know what's on it.
Ooh, I get to hear it soon.
It's juicy.
I'm looking forward to it.
Love it. Talking about the fatigue factor with Coach John Kaufman.
Yeah.
Talking about the trap game with Coach Maria Marcasano. Because remember, the women, basically everything will be on the line Saturday when the women take on Green Bay.
Yeah.
They both enter this final week with just one loss, and it's Green Bay, Purdue Fort Wayne to finish the season Saturday. But the Mastodons have to play in Milwaukee on their way to Green Bay. So they have a Thursday night game against Milwaukee, and how do you prepare for a team that I think's in last place right now?
They are
in the Horizon League standings.
Yeah.
When you have to play the first place team 2 days later. You don't want to overlook them.
No, don't want to get one of those trap games.
And we'll talk to Maria Marcasano about that.
Awesome.
We'll talk to Lauren Ross about her season with Purdue Fort Wayne. It's been an amazing year for the transfer out of Michigan State, formerly at Western Michigan. And she had a very special senior day and had a couple of very special guests that made the trip into Fort Wayne just to support her on senior day. We'll find out about that. Trey Lewis, who we haven't talked to before. We'll get to know Trey, who are some of the influences on his basketball career. And, of course, another conversation with Rasheed Bello, soft-spoken, very unselfish point guard for the Mastodons, but he also can torch the nets. And we'll talk about where he's made the most improvement in his game, some of the goals he still has, what the emotions were like on senior night, all of that with Rasheed Bello. So it was an entertaining hour that we've got coming up at 6 o'clock.
Should be fun coming up soon.
260-447-8500, 260-447-8500. That is the Parkview Sports Medicine text line. Don't forget, if you miss any of the show and you want to catch up, we are available on the podcast network that you probably listen to podcasts on. If you haven't found us, then you need to search for us. And you do that by putting into the search bar, Sports Rush with Brett Rump. That's 2 T's. Sports Rush with Brett Rump. And you will find our show. You will find all the episodes. We break them down hour by hour of each and every day. And you can go back and listen to whatever you want to hear that you may have missed with the Sports Rush, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We'll take a quick break, come back, wrap it up here on a Tuesday. It is the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. A 20-year playing career in the WNBA has officially come to an end as Diana Taurasi has officially announced her retirement. Her career recap, all-time leading scorer with over 10,000 points, all-time leading three-point shooter with almost 1,500 three-pointers made, second most in games played, fourth most assists with almost 2,400 assists, an 11-time WNBA All-Star, a 3-time WNBA champion, 2009 WNBA MVP, and, of course, the biggest career mark, most technical fouls, 105.
She was a animated player.
Sue Bird 3 years ago, and Diana Taurasi this year. The changing face of the WNBA. It's now Caitlin Clark's league. Really is. Big thanks to our guests that appeared on the show today. Craig Fisher from the Fort Wayne Curling Club, who joined us to talk about Lawn Bowl, which is hopefully coming to Fort Wayne soon. Also, Sam King from the Lafayette Journal and Courier, who joined us in hour number 2. The Mastodons Coaches Show is coming up next. This has been the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.